Hey, Perry.
Good morning.
There's Lorena.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well.
Right. So my box to you should arrive, I think, is today Thursday? It's supposed to arrive. Yeah. Listen, I don't have any idea anymore.
I can relate.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Ooh, it's been a couple,
What was that?
it's been a few years.
It has been a couple years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Lorena,
I'm good.
pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So Lorena, lucky Lorena, is on the West Coast.
Yes.
Okay. What part of West Coast are you?
I'm in Southern California.
Oh, okay. Right. Great.
I wish I was in Southern California, Lorena. I tried to get there.
Yes.
Perry, my son was going to school in Southern Cal for a couple years, but he came home. So yeah.
Good.
Hello there.
Good morning.
Your mute is on, just so you know.
Thank you.
There you go. I had the same thing.
Welcome, welcome. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join in and helping me with this project this crazy project that I'm working on. So greatly appreciate it.
Perry, how many people are we expecting? Who else RSVP?
I think there's maybe going to be one or two more.
Okay.
The availability was really spread out.
Yeah.
And so I decided to just start with one meeting, and then we can regroup maybe another week or so. I have some work that I'm doing with a branding group. So I wanted to at least get one discussion in with this group and then take that to branding group and then continue to work. So
Okay.
it's great.
All right, we're starting to get some East Coast presence here. I see Kevin will be joining us soon.
Yes. And
There
it is the Kevin that I know. How are you, Kevin?
How are you, Perry?
Great. It has been a long time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
How do you guys know each other?
Kraft Latin America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went down to Latin America in 2004 and was HR for the office and some of the other sales groups. And I think what was the name of the group you were on, Kevin? You were in?
I was in the
export, right?
Exports group, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to hang out with those guys. They had a closet on their floor with lots of really good stuff in it. Yeah. Of course, Kraft was always known for having good products, but they had the international good stuff.
In the last year or so, I had a basement full of Kraft tchotchkes and, just like so much stuff. And I finally just got rid of it. I can't. I was there for 15 years. It was just so much, like the Oreo cookie jar, just all these different tchotchkes. I don't know if Gerardo or Carissa are joining us at all, but for my East Coast, do you guys remember this? This was from one of the first years of the internships you guys on the East Coast gave me. I don't know why, just as when you guys came in for the summer conference, I still have this thing. So how long ago were you guys interns? It gets its use. This is my hot chocolate mug. So I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
Been a while.
Yeah, it has been many, many, many years. But Perry, it's 5 after. Should we just go ahead and start? I just want to personally thank you guys for your time and responding and participating in this really important initiative that Perry's going to talk about. You know, I know these are insane times, to say the least, physically, mentally. I hope everyone is well and safe. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time out to share your insights. So Perry, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah. So thanks again for everybody being here. I sort of, to the meeting notice, I attached a document, and then I kind of rambled in an email, just trying to lay out, sort of give you a little bit of background of who I am and how I'm connected to Mel and Kraft and all of that stuff. And then sort of how this whole idea, you know, came about. So you guys had the opportunity to participate in Inroads. And that organization, believe it or not, does not operate anymore in Louisiana. And, you know, as I laid out in the email, we've got about 6 historically Black colleges and then an umpteen number of other, you know, majority colleges in the state. And so one of the issues that we know from the data that's being talked about all over the place now is that, you know, it's more difficult for students of color after college to find jobs. And there's all sorts of economic ripple effects from all of that. Harder to pay back your debt, harder to, you know, build wealth, all of those kinds of things. And, you know, I don't know the stats from Inroads, but what I do know is that this program linked people to jobs, and jobs in companies like Kraft Foods, where, you know, I was, you know, fortunate and blessed to work. And I know the work that we did and the kind of experiences that we tried to give to our interns, so that it would not only, if you didn't get a job with Kraft, you still got a really good internship, and one that you had on your resume that people would go like, oh, you had an internship at Kraft, like when can you start, kind of a thing, right? So one of the factors, you know, for this is to really try to address that in this space where I am today. So, you know, I'm born and raised in New Orleans, and after years of Kraft and Nabisco and a number of other companies, I returned home. And you know, this became a project that landed on my plate, and then I'm, you know, trying to drive it forward. So I'm looking to connect a bunch of dots. And so what I wanted to do was, since I'm sort of creating from scratch, if you will, I'm attempting to borrow from wheels that I know are that already exist, and programs that are already in place, to figure out what's the good stuff that works in those programs, and then where are there opportunities for us to then take it to the next level. Because, you know, one of the questions I asked, you know, to the group is, you're now in your corporate America sort of jobs, right? You've gone through that transition of going from student, intern, student, into corporate America. And, you know, at some point in time, you're in that evolution, still growing, but you're in that evolution. So what are the opportunities if you were going to look back and say, man, if someone had told me X, Y, Z, you know, then it would have helped me to move faster and quicker along the path, or prepared me for some of the challenges that I, you know, encountered. So I'm trying to build if we're going to build it, you know, build a bigger, a better Inroads program, if that's possible. And I love the program. I love the brand. I couldn't convince them to come to Louisiana, so I decided to take this on. So with that in mind, there were a series of questions that I put in an email. So I just, maybe if you guys, so first of all, this is like Zoom, so just so I didn't have to worry about trying to take notes and listen to you guys, it's being recorded, just so that I can share it with my brand team and all that stuff, and they can, you know, sort of hear from you guys directly when I shared this with them. So I wanted to just make you aware of that. And then the other part was really, if you don't mind, just sort of taking a moment or two to talk about when was your internship, where was it, and just an overall what your experience was like. So in any order you want to go, whoever wants to go first.
Perry, I'll kick it off since I see my good friend Lynelli is still on mute. So I was an intern for 2 summers with Inroads. In our internship was out of the Boston affiliate of Inroads, but I was based in Providence, Rhode Island. So it was, I want to say, summer of 02, 03. So I did two summers. Started out, first year was Nabisco. Second was with Kraft, and Perry, you guys will remember from that time. That was right when the Nabisco integration started happening with Kraft, the merger. So they were still, two very much separate organizations. And I think also from what I could glean, organizations with very different cultures as well. Nabisco, how it was explained to me, and then also just what I saw based on my experience, was very much like a boys club, so to speak. So there wasn't a lot of women, at least in the office I worked in. Women were very much a minority, not many, ethnic minorities either. So it's predominantly white men, and seemed like people had, like, you had to have like a connection to get in, right, into Nabisco. So I think, with the Inroads program and Kraft's championing of it, they brought that to the Nabisco side. So that was the kind of the first I guess you could say that was the first summer, I think, that they started taking Inroads interns.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience was good. It was laid out like very, it was laid out very methodically. So I got exposed to different aspects of the business, from, what like a sales, a DSD sales rep does, the whole piece with like logistics, like seeing how the trucks get loaded. It was interesting because I didn't realize at the time, like, so the warehouses were like union workers. So that caused so like they set me up, like, work with some people on the warehouse and trucks. And apparently that caused a little bit of a rift because, the union, kind of the warehouse guys are like, there's no money for whatever they were advocating for, but they got money for these programs and things like that. So, but actually after I did my first internship, I found that I kind of didn't like the nature of the job, and I wanted to seek something else out. This was coming because I had, throughout high school, I worked for a supermarket stocking shelves. So essentially I'd be going to like do another job where stocking shelves,
Mm-hmm.
albeit, at a much higher rate, but, it just wasn't something I was interested in doing. So like I was looking for a change of pace, but then for my second year, I got put on like what they call like the warehouse side. So it was like the traditional Kraft side, and I was working like in a like data, like pulling data analytics role. So, very coming to that side, it was more, I found it like it was more diverse. There was more women in management positions. So it felt a little more comfortable for me. And I, had good mentor, on the side that, really, took an interest in just making sure that, we're getting the right experiences and, getting the most out of our internship. So overall, it was like a very positive experience. And I think obviously without the Inroads piece of it, right, it'd be probably very hard to get linked up with a company such as like a Kraft Foods, not having, either mentors or other people in like corporate positions that I could lead to help kind of like point me in the right direction and help prepare me to try to get those jobs. So, so overall positive, very positive experience. And then I did appreciate some of like the trainings that we got in terms of, you know, preparing to work in corporate America, like etiquette, things of that nature. So, like I said, very overall positive experience for myself, and without it, I probably wouldn't be where, you know, where I am today.
Kevin, can I just ask 2 questions?
Yep.
You referred to training. Was that from Inroads, or are you talking about Kraft?
So I'd say like the Inroads trainings. And then I also did, you know, appreciate the fact, like on the Kraft trainings, you know, the fact that, I mean, Kraft was exposing us to senior leaders in the company, you know, when they bring people, you know, bring us all in, you know, for summer, and we got to meet the CEO at the time, you know, senior HR leaders, I think was Kwame Salter. So training, good, you know, good exposure, good training on both sides. And it just, you know, left me with the feeling that, you know, the company was also fully invested in us as well, and trying to make sure that that we fit in. And I actually had an experience when I was going to transition to like get a full-time job. I honestly think if it was up for like the hiring manager, I might have not actually got the job, but I think people pretty much, you know, came and said like, you got it, basically you got it, like we've invested in Kevin for these inward, like, you know, he's done these experiences, like you need to, you know, to hire them. And I think it was just like my first experience of like, you know, sometimes if, you know, you can do the job, but like if you can't, for whatever reason, you don't click with the person, or the person doesn't click with you, right? It can just have an impact on like your ability to, you know, get a job. Because it, you know, I remember going for the interview and everybody was telling me like, it's just basically like a formality, don't worry about it. Like one thing I didn't receive was training on like, this is how you do an interview. So then I go into an interview and it's like all the behavioral questions, right? And frankly, like I was unprepared to like I've never been exposed in terms of like having to interview. Like, keep in mind, up until now, I've only interviewed for like just to get the internship at Inroads, and then for a job at Burger King and a job at like Shaw Supermarket. So I wasn't prepared for that piece of it. And you know, I honestly, like, it didn't go well. I didn't feel it went well because I wasn't prepared. But like I said, I also felt like just with the body of work over like working 2 summers and the experiences I had should have given me like the benefit of the doubt. And I think, right, some people I think just have to make some calls and that like, listen, you need to hire this guy. So that was kind of just my first experience also, like of like, okay, just navigating in like corporate and just making sure you just need to be super prepared whenever you go into like situation and try to anticipate all these things, because you know that could be used, you know, that could be used against you. So
My second question real quick was you referenced mentors. Inroads assigned you mentors, or you had mentors within Kraft? And if they were within Kraft, what level?
yeah, so I'd say it was like within Kraft, and like the person, you know, the person I was working under, right, was like the coordinator who like oversaw. But I noticed I had you could say a stronger connection with like the person my second year, because she just seemed to like just take a genuine interest and like want to make sure you do well. And whereas, you know, the first year, not that it was a bad experience, but I think he was also new to it. It was new to like the Nabisco side, and it was, you know, very much just making sure, you know, we go on, you know, stay on to the plan, right? The summer plan, and checking the boxes and things like that. But I was also being like working in the office too. The second year, I was able just to meet some other people who had been who had been enrollers as well, who were like early in their career, you know, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years in, who also were able to like, you know, take Lynelli and I in and like give us some guidance in terms of like navigating through, you know, through the internship and through the organization.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I can jump in. Kevin and I had very similar backgrounds and experiences. I was in Inroads for about 3 years, and I was invited back every summer and every winter. And I was just on the warehouse side. I wish I could tell you every single detail, but I feel like it was like a long time ago and it was a different lifetime, and so much has happened since. But I think in order to approach the conversation, we have to take it a little bit apart on the Inroads piece and the Kraft piece, right?
Absolutely.
So when I started looking into that, Inroads played, and the fact that they worked together so nicely made the experience that much better. Kraft is known for process. There's a lot of other companies that are not known to be so strict and, have so many like the process put together, which I think helps when you're an intern and when you're that young. You need to have boundaries, parameters, like, where do I, so I will take it with Inroads first. Inroads provided us an opportunity to have people who have very similar backgrounds, that we are experiencing the same thing or similar things in college, right? Being in whichever college that we were in America, we were still the Latinos or the Black students, and we were all kind of working into business on how do we get into something that potentially our parents never got into. So, and reaching levels that our parents never did. So here we had a safe space where we could talk to each other and bounce ideas on potentially corporate America and, how should I wear my hair and how should I conduct myself? It could be into very like detailed things like that in a very safe environment. And then going into partnering up with a company that was very much invested in Inroads, right? So it's, you start in Inroads where they help you with, one thing about Inroads, they will give it to you straight. They will tell you, hey, listen, you're in corporate America. These are the expectations. We're trying to reach levels that potentially our parents never did. And for that, we need to work hard. We need to be buttoned up. We don't have room for error. We used to go and have trainings every Saturday. So here you are, and it's summertime, and you're working Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday, you're driving to Boston to get some training on how to work in this corporate environment that potentially we would have never been exposed. And if I had questions, I might have not been able to ask my parents on how to navigate towards, through a interview process, or I'm having a clash with my boss or with a coworker. How do I deal with that? Where Inroads provided that. And I think as a training ground, it was very necessary. And because we had people who were training us who had similar backgrounds than us and had been successful in their careers, we could also see what we could attain, right? So we had people that we can look up to and all that. So I think that was the Inroads piece. And it's also the type of family that we created. So I would tell you, Kevin and I still remain best friends, and Carissa and anybody and everybody that I met through the Inroads and Kraft experience, we remain tight. You almost go to, you have a situation where you have each other's back, and we experienced that. We grew together in that manner. Kraft specifically, again, process was great. It was you have the Inroads piece, and then you go into corporate America, and they were invested. So there's nothing like a company that's invested in a program that they make sure that champions are in place. So Kevin was talking specifically about mentors. They used to call them champions a lot from when I, was there, that I remember. And you had people in different functions that it was basically, they were passionate about it. I don't know if they were told they had to take it on, but I think they had a genuine, passion towards creating a space for people like us to come in and work. So I think that as I look back, right, just to kind of pass on so Lorena can jump in as well. As I look back, there were some things where you have the training from Inroads and they give it to you straight and you get ready to go into Kraft. You start Kraft and you have an opportunity that you would have probably never had because you don't have connections. Your parents don't have connections. You have people that, you know, that have your back and want you to succeed, but you're not grandfathered into any type of situation. And I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I've seen it in my career. But then there's the other part that I built on my own, and I call them my board of directors. And what I do is, and a lot of people happen to be Kraft people or Inroads people, and it could be people my same age, older, or in different industries, where I surround myself with basically a panel of how do you deal when you find out that you are getting paid 20% less than your counterpart? How do you deal? So it's the next evolution of that. Inroads got you in the door and it gave you the opportunity to have a really good fighting chance. Kraft had great process and investment, and it was a great experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. But the part afterwards, and the part afterwards for me becomes okay, now you got the job, now you have the experience. So how do you navigate towards or through the interview process, or potentially a boss that you disconnect, or potentially you get paid, pay inequality or whatever else. Like, it would be great if we had that process in place as well as we continue to move on, because we're trailblazers a lot in our families sometimes. So that's my background. That's
a lot of great information. I have a quick question. I don't know if we lost Perry or maybe he just stopped video. But Lenalia, my question is, Kraft absolutely 100% very structured.
Yeah.
Do you think, because I'm in a company now, Medline, that is 180 degrees different. Like, it is, we're getting bigger, so there's more structure, but like, you have to really be a self-starter and very self-motivated, and a lot is just do it. We're so unstructured. Do you think Inroads, did they prep you for either type of organization? Was it like, listen, Kraft, they have their act together, so, it's going to be very structured, but there are other companies that, you're going to go in and you're going to have to be this very self-motivated person, and you're going to have to create. I guess I'll throw it out to anybody. Did anybody have any type of prep from Inroads on the type of company that you would be going into? Does that make sense?
Yes. So it makes total sense, because after Kraft, I went to work for L'Oreal, and L'Oreal is super, you just do it and it's sink or swim, and it's totally that way. But I would tell you, L'Oreal loves Kraft people because they inherently have, a structure. I think that, I think Inroads did prepare you for whatever may come your way. And I think that a lot of the people that came into Inroads were self-starters. If you were in Inroads as a sophomore in college, that means that you went to a job fair and you went and interviewed at Inroads, and you were sort of this entrepreneurial spirit. You were a go-getter. You were hungry to do something. So I think that takes a certain personality, and they did give you the tools. But I would tell you, at that age, you don't know what's normal and what's not. So you could have been in a totally structured or not, and that would have been the way things were. So either you make it work or you don't. But I do think that they gave you sort of, hey, these are the things that it doesn't matter in what environment, because remember, we were in food, but there were people in finance. There were people in different organizations, and we were all trained the same way: how to conduct a meeting, how to, have a conversation, how to shake somebody's hand. So I think that they used a lot of tools that can transcend different situations and companies. But I also think it takes a certain type of person to be part of Inroads as well.
That's an excellent point. You're right. Everybody who joined that organization as a student was definitely very self-motivated and a self-starter. Yeah. I think Kevin mentioned this. For inroads, you had to apply. I'd love to hear if Perry, well, we'll do Lorena, but then I'd love to hear about, and maybe Lorena, you can hit on this. How do you get into inroads?
So I'll answer that question first. You have to apply. So there was an application process, and then you interview to get into the program. And one of the things that, at least I was in the Seattle region, so in the Pac Northwest, one of the things they told us is you're in the Inroads program, but it's your job to nail that, get that interview for the internship. You're not guaranteed a job. That was one of the things they told us. And then they gave us the training, the groundwork to really build ourselves up to be able to have those interviews, to tackle those behavioral interviews, to talk to somebody and be able to come across professionally. And I think several have made points. How to shake somebody's hand? How do you do that? How do you say hello? How do you build up your resume if you don't have a lot of corporate experience? It's a process, and not everybody gets in. I had quite a few people that I knew that had applied and didn't get in because it was pretty competitive. And it had a GPA requirement. You had to have above a 3.0 in order to come in. Granted, it was, there were high school seniors going into their freshman year, and then there's people who are already in college. So I was an intern from 99 to 01 in Seattle. It was not a very diverse office at all. Diverse in terms of there were women in positions of managerial positions, but there wasn't a lot of people of color. I had structure within my craft experience, but a lot of the times I felt like I was just getting handed off to somebody to do something. The first year, went through the interview process, had the opportunity to intern at Kraft, and my hiring manager was promoted. So then I was handed off to his replacement. And that's how I felt like I was just handed off. That person wasn't as invested as the person who had hired me. It was still a great experience that first summer. I was adopted by the Insights team. So I was pulling data and then getting exposed to different aspects of CPG and what that region office did. So from going out to doing a reset with the merchandisers to working with the sales reps and knowing what it was like to actually sell in at store level, and then working with the customer category managers on the account level as well. And like I said, I was there for 3 summers, so it evolved into me getting experience in what that first job would have been, because I was on the sales track. And this was a Kraft warehouse side, so this was pre-Nabisco merger. So it was quite different. And I was with Kraft when that merger happened. So I can completely relate to what Kevin was talking about as far as 2 different experiences or cultures. But it was, I mean, I think the training aspect was key on the Inroads piece and then on the Kraft side. I think the highlight for me in the summers not only was me getting the experience to build out that resume, because I knew that was extremely important to have that as you graduate, and being able to land a position, is having a company who has process in place, who is known for their training programs. But it really depended on the person and being a self-starter. And I think that my internship experience at Kraft was a little less structured than maybe the Boston area, just because there was usually, it was me or another person. There wasn't a lot of interns in that Seattle region because of the size of the office. But I was able to have mentors that weren't necessarily assigned to me. It was just people that I kind of latched onto and I clicked with, and they were the ones that helped me maneuver through the different circumstances that I've come across through my experience with Kraft. Yeah, I mean, it was a good starting point for my career.
Great. Looks like we have Houston in the house. Hey, Golie.
What's going on?
Thanks for joining us. You
No
know,
worries. No worries. I was hopping from one meeting to another, so I apologize for being late.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. So what we're doing is really just having each person sort of talk about their experience, where they were, what did they, the highlights of the program, benefits, those kinds of things. So you're up. So you
Okay.
joined just in the perfect time.
Okay. Cool. Well, in regards to my experience at Kraft, I mean, I think it was great. I got to work with a lot of different people, and I kind of I had a unique situation because I got to move around a little bit. So I was in sales information in one summer. I was in field sales on another summer. And then I did customer service too. And so overall, the experience was good because I kind of got a really good opportunity to see everything from 3 different levels within sales. I understood exactly what was happening from a point of sale standpoint at the grocery level, and what was happening as far as for selling into managers through certain seasons and all those things. And then moving into sales information, it was helpful because I got to see how the seasonality reports and the buying habits and everything dictated what was happening from a point of sale standpoint at the store level and all those things. And then customer service wise, I got to see how everything tied in together from deliveries, how important that was, how big of a deal it was to make sure that the drivers were on the right page and that everything was handled correctly. So I felt like I got like a really, really good overall understanding of how the business ran. And I also got a really good understanding of just what the opportunities would look like long-term, depending on which route I went into. So at the time, I don't think I actually appreciated it as much as I did after I did it, because the first summer I was in field sales. So I was like, that's all I wanted to do was like field sales or marketing. After going through all 3 of those or 4 of those summers, then I recognized like the benefit of being able to get exposed to all those different areas. But at the time, at where I was from a business acumen standpoint and just being a kid in college, I thought that I was being, kind of pushed into things that I didn't really want to do. And so I think that was a huge benefit that I think was extremely positive as far as from my experience with Inroads. And then of course, I had access to people like Melanie, Kwame, who else? There were so many people that were like big impacts there. I could probably name 10 or 15 different people that I felt like were just really instrumental in kind of guiding me and giving me good information from a working perspective, as well as just general like life types of things. So I think I had a great experience. I really did. I don't really have much to give and critique. I think that if anything, I would have wanted to maybe potentially get more challenging stuff that I could have touched. That probably would have been the biggest thing, because I think the most challenging thing I got to do was selling into stores in the first couple of years. The stuff from a customer service standpoint and the sales information standpoint wasn't as challenging because I wasn't really doing things that were that difficult. It was more like administrative and just kind of being a fly on the wall type of thing. So if anything, I would say, really challenging the people who are, coming into those programs would be a big benefit, because not only does it help the organization in really getting a gauge of how strong that individual is, but I think it will also help the individual in figuring out what they want to do and why they want to do that, because here I am today, 15 years into my career. I have a marketing degree and I haven't had a marketing position one time. I've done marketing in my roles quite a few times, but I think a lot of people run into situations like that. So the biggest benefit is being able to see all these different things. And had I not been in inroads and worked with Kraft, I wouldn't have even known that to get into a Fortune 500 marketing department, in most cases, you need to have an MBA and know that those things are what's required to get there. Otherwise, I would have just thought that I was going to end up doing ads for Kraft Foods when I graduated and ended up out here doing sales jobs for the rest of my life. But I got exposure to it, so I got to see what everything was, if I wanted to do that, and pick the route that I wanted to go in. So that's my view on everything.
So you did 4 summers?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had a really good opportunity.
So you interned in your freshman year.
Yeah.
You went right into the job. So did everyone have more than 2? Everybody had at least 2, correct? You get 3?
Mm-hmm.
3. Kevin, how many do you have? 0. Click keys. So
Just
So
the
the
funny thing, so
3
Golie, can I just confirm, Golie, you didn't then come on board with Kraft?
Why?
No, I'm just saying you did not, just so.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't in the end. When at the end of my 4th internship, I did get an offer and I didn't come on board. And the reason why is because it was during the transition or the acquisition of Nabisco. There was a ton of people in the sales organization. They didn't need to add resources there. And I got that. I understood that 100%. I knew I wasn't going to be able to go into the marketing department. Already had that conversation, understood that. So the role that I would have been looking at was a customer service position, which I felt like I would have done well with, but I just didn't have the interest or passion for it. So I ended up actually going into business for myself and, being a broke entrepreneur for 3-4 years. So I look back at that and I go, I could have lived a good life them 4 years out of college. Instead, I decided to be broke some more. So, but hopefully, it continues to pan out okay for me. But yeah, I ended up not taking it. But I do, what I will say is the one thing that I do kind of wish that I would have taken advantage of the opportunity. And the reason why is because even though I knew for a fact I did not want to do that job, what I didn't realize at that time too, is that the network I had access to at that point was so much more beneficial than anything I could have done. I could have still went and did something entrepreneurial on the side and that'd have been fine. But, the likelihood that you're going to come into your career in the first 5 years of your work history and have access to, decision makers and human resources, executive level individuals in the company, and be on a first name basis with people in multiple departments of a multinational organization is something that I did not grasp at the time. Maybe that's just because I was, I'm from Gary, Indiana, and just didn't get it, at the point. But, I was focused on doing my own thing. But that's another thing that I think it's beneficial. I think there's 2 components that can be put together. And I see this now because I'm a part of a nonprofit called Suits for Sons here, where we work with college students. And there's the business component that helps people tremendously from a work standpoint. But then there's the personal component that addresses all the other things that a person doesn't necessarily come into college or leave college with the information for. Like I knew networking was important. I did not know that my leverage would be different by having access to people at a certain level, though, if that makes any sense. That just, that didn't click for me at that point. To me, it was just like a personal relationship. So I would have reached out to those individuals and be like, hey, I need help with this, or have you ever thought about this, or had a conversation like that, not knowing that that's somebody that, if I wanted to move into a different department or have access to opportunities that might be upcoming and not on Front Street or something like that, that there's a chance that that person might be able to help me with that. So those are things that, you know, I think that in hindsight, in regards to what we're talking about with this and what we end up doing with this, those are things that could be really beneficial to incorporating into the program, so that people really come out with like a holistic view of like how to use all of this to their advantage.
Mm-hmm. Good, very good perspective. So talk about the inroads side of things. I think you're touching on some of it, but we've also talked about what did you get from and glean from the inroads side of what inroads brought to the table, along with and match with the craft side. So you talked about a lot of the craft piece of it, but what about the inroad side of it?
Yeah, the inroad side of it was really positive too. I think it focused primarily on the business aspects, you know, business etiquette, you know, how to handle yourself at a lunch meeting, you know, what to order, what to eat, like, you know, not to be messy and, you know, things like that, how to communicate, how to provide good presentations, and, you know, things that definitely lend well in the, you know, in the corporate world. But where I think it missed is on that more personal aspect. I think what could have been extremely beneficial to how Inroads is set up is that it's really set up more to get you in line with the internship opportunity, and then make sure that you're successful in that internship. But there's a mentorship aspect that I think was missing. Now, I think I gained a lot of that from people like Melanie and Kwame, just naturally through the relationship that was developed, but that's not guaranteed to happen for everybody. So I think that what could have been more beneficial from a Inroads internship perspective is to actually have mentors to walk through those things and have conversations with people about, like, you know, what are you really doing with these relationships, even with the people that you meet in Inroads, because I'm still really close friends with almost everybody that I was friends with at Inroads at the time. My best friend was at Inroads. He was working in Indianapolis, so he was in the Indianapolis chapter. Joe Johnston, he's now a interim VP at Sabra. My Calvin Portley, I'm still friends with him. I know his wife, his kids, they used to live in Houston. They moved to California. He's doing venture capitalist projects and stuff. Casey, I'm still friends with him. I mean, I'm still friends with the majority. Daniel Coward, he was in the Kraft kitchens. He used to make all kinds of really cool stuff. He had a real cool job. Like, he used to make all kinds of interesting stuff, and then try it out with us at the after work and stuff like that. So like that's a big thing too. Now, luckily, I held on to those relationships, but I think, you know, the mentorship component was one thing that was probably missing. Everything else was there. They did workshops for pretty much everything that you could expect to be challenged with in a job.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mel, did you have any other questions that came to mind?
Well, one thing,
I got a bazillion of them popping in my head. So.
yeah. One thing Linelia mentioned was Saturday morning. So was that the structure? I have two questions. Was that the structure that every Saturday morning you were required to go to an Inroads meeting? And was that for training, I think you said? Did you all have that? Were like weekly Inroads meetings?
I feel like it was monthly. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like it wasn't every weekend, but it definitely was Saturday, and it was a I don't know, 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 type thing.
Okay.
It was a full day.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, I think it was
full day once a month.
Yeah, I think it was monthly.
And while you were in the summer, or was this a year-round thing?
In the summer.
In summer, yeah.
Did you guys all understand the importance of Inroads and how special it was? Like, you were top candidates. Did you get that? Did Inroads tell you that? Did you understand that?
I'll speak to this. I knew it was a huge door opening for me. And I say that because I worked at the Career Center at the university that I attended. So I saw and I got to interact with multiple companies coming in and interviewing at the university. And it was a huge in because it, without inroads, at least for me and for everyone that was going to attend a university, it's really difficult to work those career fairs because they're so huge. I remember working a career fair my freshman year, going into my freshman summer, and I'd go up and talk to, you know, the companies that I had targeted I wanted to talk to, and they'd give me a pen, come back when you're a senior. Having that opportunity to intern at a company and having that on your resume makes you stand out. And when I worked at this career center at the University of Washington, when I would talk to the recruiters coming in to interview kids for full-time jobs, being internships or whatnot, they would tell me, you know, having that experience, having that on your resume is really gonna catch attention. So it's very powerful.
So, I mean, I will say that we were doing things that our counterparts weren't in college, right? So it goes back to the type of student that was applying to Inroads and the makeup of that person and the go-getter and the entrepreneurial spirit. If you have a freshman going into career fair and targeting certain companies, you know that they're coming with that passion. So I think that it attracts a certain candidate. And if you were in, you were doing things that your peers weren't. So there was a sense of I'm in the right, I'm going on the right path. Now the interesting thing that was, I think was mentioned earlier, is that it was almost like an internal conflict. Like you were super excited to be part of a company like Kraft, but then if you were doing sales and you were doing resets and you were cleaning shelves, and then you had other counterparts that were looking into marketing, and it was a very, I was surrounded by the right people because they kept me humble. And they ensured that I knew that all the pieces of the puzzle will come together at some point. But I remember we did have an intern at one point, Kevin, I don't know if you remember this, and he was just like, this is not a good fit for me. Like, I'm not going to this amazing college to come and clean shelves. Like, that's not, you know, what I signed up for. And I would tell you, in my years after being with L'Oreal for 8.5 years, one of the things that landed the interview that I got to talk to L'Oreal was when I spoke about my internship at Kraft, and the fact that I did clean shelves, and the fact that I did know how to do a reset, and the fact that there was no job that was too big or too small for me to take on. So I think it was a little bit of a conflict because you knew you were special. You were part of Inroads, you were in a top company, you were doing things that your peers weren't. So you have a high GPA, you're probably in a really good school, but it's also like, hey, put in the work because it's gonna pay up at the end, even if you don't have the big marketing job. Because a lot of us we ended up in sales, but our background was in marketing in school. We didn't understand what marketing really entailed. We were like, oh, we're gonna be part of an ad agency and we're gonna do
advertising, right?
Yep.
right.
Commercials, all that kind of stuff. Yep.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now it was definitely that. I agree. I think you know, I experienced some of the same things. You know, I was thinking like, you know, I'm gonna be doing some job in this big shiny office and, you know, all these things. And, you know, you have all kinds of grandiose ideas of what you're gonna be doing. At the end of the day, you know, everybody has to roll their sleeves up. So I definitely recognized that it was a great opportunity that I recognize for sure. But I also had the same thoughts of like, dang, I'm just working the grocery store, you know, in the beginning. But by the time I got through the mid part of the internship, and I started to see all the other things, and I'm like, oh, that's what an end cap is, and that's why they put that there, and this increases sales like that and stuff like. Then I was like, okay, this isn't what it looks like on the surface, and that's what got me excited about it and made me want to like really, you know, get what I could out of the program. So, yeah, I felt special after I started to grasp what was really going on.
Right, and it sounds like what I've heard come from a different angles is that maybe there's an opportunity for inroads in the program to sort of paint that picture, right? To give you a perspective about, you know, as you guys were talking about this, images of the Karate Kid came in, you know, to me where I'm thinking, you know, he doesn't want to wash the car and wax on, wax off kind of a thing. And so all of a sudden, you know, you're fighting kind of a thing. So that was the image that popped into my head. So, so I do think that there's this opportunity, it sounds like, to make sure that we're talking about, you know, the meat grinding part of making the sausage, right? And that there is a process, and that you know, part of the process, learning that is really beneficial, and will play off and become important later on when you're talking about your experiences in an interview with someone, and you know, trying to demonstrate your willingness to do, you know, that work on that level, and that you really understand that work on that level, right?
But I also think that what worked for us potentially might not work for the new generation. And the reason why I'm saying that is we were almost, I don't want to say, I'll speak to from my own personal experience. My parents were never in corporate America. So you tell me what I need to do and I'm going to do it.
Right.
Like, right? Like that's, if you tell me I cannot wear a big curly hair for the office, I will straighten my hair and I will go to the office. I'm not trying to stand out. I am trying to fit in. I think that times are different now. I think that if Inroads was to take the same approach they did when we were there, it would be taken differently at this point in time with everything that's going on, where it's more about authenticity, and it's all about what do you bring to the table that is different and unique to you, that is added value to the company. Where we, at least from my own personal experience, it was, how do we make sure that, you know, you don't make Inroads look bad, right? Like, we're bringing out quality, you know, students your way, because you are opening doors for the ones that are coming after you. And because of that, we're not trying to ruffle any feathers. We're trying to make sure that you give that output that they need, and they see more people like you to be integral part of the company. I think now there's a little bit of a shift into authenticity and making sure that you can be, you know, your authentic self and bring that to the company. Where before it was more like, hey, just listen, I picked up golf. Like, I don't really care for golf, but at that point I picked up golf. Then I went to an industry, in the beauty industry, where we used to have spa days. And what I had learned about, you need to learn how to play golf, was no longer relevant, because they knew that wasn't authentic to me. So I think there's a shift also into the new generation and what they're gonna be okay with.
I agree with that, but I would also say that the aspect on work ethic, especially in regards to like going to school and, you know, having the expectation that you're going to work in a big office in a downtown of a major metropolitan city, and then go and do your internship and be, you know, in a back stock room of a grocery store, and it smells bad, and, you know, it's stuff everywhere, and you're trying to unpack loads and stuff like that and help, you know, the merchandiser get stuff product on the shelf. Like, if people don't want to do it, pass on them. Like, I'm sorry, like, that's just like, there is some things with the new generation that I don't think it's, I think it's just a lack of understanding that they have access to a lot of information, but the same way that I didn't get a lot of things when I was at that point then, it just needs to be packaged in a way where they can get that this is just as important. Because I think once it is, then it'll resonate and you'll get the work ethic that you need out of them. The same way that people probably didn't respect the individuals we're calling essential workers right now, going through this pandemic has completely changed people's, perception and perspective on that. It would be a very similar thing for them to understand that, okay, in order for that building to be there and you to be in that nice shiny office, this has to happen because this is what actually creates the economy for the company. Like, as long as they can see that this is not me using you to just do some underling work, this is me trying to get you to understand that at the end of the day, like, these two things have to happen in order for us to be able to do all this other stuff, then you can get something out of them. But I just think they need more information, because although they have access to it, they don't necessarily get it the way that we would probably think that they would.
And Perry, I think one thing we haven't touched on, and one thing we did a little bit of it, I think, in Inroads, but would be, I think, very helpful as you think of like, how do you make like a version 2.0 or something better, is I think, Inroads was good about getting us to the point to like get our foot in the door and land the job, right? And then it's like teaching like those life skills, like once you get into the job, right? So like what I'm thinking about is like, how do you start building up your net worth? Because now you got a lot of kids who maybe their parents were immigrants, or their parents didn't go to college or didn't work in the corporate world. And now you got a kid, young man or woman who now has a good job, making money they've never made before. Like, how do they manage that, right? And start building up the net worth? Because from my perspective, like, probably like 21 to 35 is like when you can start building up, because maybe you have fewer expenses, you don't have a mortgage yet, you don't have kids, like, and I think people, that's something that is not necessarily like, you're not taught. And if you don't have mentors to like put you on the right path, or, it's something, right, as we think about ultimately when we look at like just wealth in this country and the disparity within wealth, it's, there's tactics that you can employ that I think it just, they're not like taught in the university, right? It's just like people passing, my family did this. So I think, that's something also that look to include that, because people like, people never invested before, don't probably can look to anybody who has investments, right? So now I'm like, okay, I got this retirement plan, 401k, what am I supposed to do? And then maybe you don't do anything because I don't know what to put it in. I don't know if I'm going to lose my money. And then you miss out on years of like compounding interest and the corporate match that you could have been getting. And just, very few companies offer pensions anymore. So I think it's, setting yourself up, like, right, you work in corporate, you're an at-will employee, we all know that at any point, right, a company can choose to restructure, and for one reason or another, you find yourself out of a job. Like, the importance of having, a little nest egg, right? And let's be honest, right, probably as a minority, we all feel it might be a little harder for us to like go land another job. Like, I know, Perry, you and I worked in Miami, and I know trying to like just break into other companies was like very difficult. I found in the Miami market for, some dynamics down there that I'm sure you're well familiar with. So just like sometimes it's even more important, right? I think for us as minorities to like make sure we do have that, because if everybody else needs to have 6 months, right? They say maybe we need to have 9. Absolutely. So I think like some of those skills, right, that we don't talk about, that's like, okay, now you're in the job, now you're making some money. Like, these are some strategies that you should employ in terms of trying to build your net worth up at this time. Because, you know, somebody said to me once, it's like, it's pretty simple, but I also find it pretty profound. Like, it's not the money you make, it's like how much money you keep, right? And and I think, right, if we keep, like, I think we tend to like focus on like how much we're getting paid and, you know, getting the next job to get more salary. And it's like, there's stuff we can do, and that to a certain degree is out of our control, but there's a lot of stuff we can do within our control and decisions we make to, like, you know, help increase our net worth. So that would be something, yeah.
He's my financial mentor throughout the year. He always keeps me in check.
Well, that brings up, and I know we're past the time. Was there any type of component in the Inroads program that was, hey, did they just forget about you after you got jobs? Or was there any type of, now it's your turn to pay it forward, we're going to use you guys to help with our incoming classes? Did anybody have that? Or did you have that as an intern where there were Inroads alum who...
I completely like dropped off the face of the earth. Like, I don't recall anybody reaching out to me being like, hey, come give back, come help out. It was just like, okay, that's done. And that's it. Like, I remember keeping in touch with Michael Jackson a few times afterwards, just because we had once again built a relationship. But as far as for like the program actually making a concerted effort to reach out to me and even the other people that I still talk to that were in Inroads, none of them have been brought back or reached out to in regards to like an alumni setup. So I don't know if that was a miss on them collectively, systematically, or if that was just something that just happened to happen to the people that I'm aware of that were in the program.
So I was invited once.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go
ahead.
No, our chapter was, they would reach out to us and ask us to come and do you have an opportunity? Can you come and help? Even after we graduated out of the program, ours was pretty, it was Tanisha Roberts. She reached out to a number of us that were enrollers at the time across different industries that we would go back and we would give back to the people who were in the program after us.
I was invited once and I did a talk with a new entering class, but then, I also feel like Inroads went through some changes. And I think they were almost like trying to relaunch or reinvent themselves in some way, shape, or form. But I would say I personally would be so open to doing something with the alumni to help each other out and to help the incoming class as well. It's just the only time that I have heard them reach out to me lately was they were doing like a book, like a alumni book. And then for, I don't know, $2.99 or something, you can get the book and a mug and a t-shirt. It was like a weird call that I got. It didn't even seem to be from Inroads. It was like from a third party.
Sure.
But I would be super open to connecting with other enrollers and see where they are. I mean, Kevin and I started together at Kraft, and then he's been in J&J, and I went to L'Oreal, and I'm at Duracell. I have our friend Carissa who ended up going to Lululemon, and people have gone into the financial world, and everybody. I think there is an opportunity there for us to further explore and to connect with each other and to help out as well. Absolutely.
Well, I will jump in and talk about. And Mel knows this, that I've been running since I left Kraft, Kraft alumni network, and it's now sort of expanded to be CPG because so many Kraft people left and have gone other places. And so, that organization is really driven really by me and people like Mel, who's been there for me and supporting that effort. So there is definitely an opportunity for, I'll send you all an invitation, but there's a portal, there's an opportunity to sort of get, reach out to Inroaders, the Kraft Inroaders, and sort of build that and create sort of a community where we know where everybody is and that kind of stuff. and and then start to put that together. And then to the extent that, you know, people were at other companies, there is a CPG element to what we've expanded the Kraft alumni network. There's a Kraft component, just a Nabisco component, Mondelez component, and then the overall CPG, if you will. So I'll let you know, we can regroup on that. But it's definitely an idea that came up as I was, you know, thinking about this particular group. You know, I have met and developed relationships with so many more people after being at Kraft and doing my work in the alumni setting. I know a tremendous amount of people that I can just pick up the phone and call or send an email to. And particularly to some of the comments that were being made here, you know, senior leaders, like, you know, all of you guys know Kwame. So I was in the HR function, and, you know, Kwame was my mentor for a couple of years that I was there, and now has been my lifelong mentor. But, you know, listen, I was like the lion going to see the wizard when I would go visit with Kwame, because he had this epic sort of persona around the organization. Similarly for, you know, people like Terry Falk and Paula Sneed, you know, those were people that were like, okay, you go in the room with them and you're just like, okay, don't pick your nose, don't touch your hair, don't do crazy stuff that's going to get you blown up. But those are all people that during the alumni stage, you know, I call those people and can get them on the phone in a moment's notice, and they're openly willing to sort of help out. So the alumni community, I do think, has, you know, a tremendous amount of value that continues, you know, from a standpoint of, you know, network, and you never know the ripple effect of, you know, who knows who, when and where, and how you can be of service to someone, and then vice versa, they can be of service to you. So we can continue that discussion. I'd be more than happy to give you guys a platform to start to, you know, build that, and work with you on that part. So I know it's after 11. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. This has been like priceless, so invaluable to hear you guys talk about the experiences, and has given me a number of pointers. There are, you know, for me, like I said, I was in the same camp with Mel. We were the HR people that, you know, especially for me, because of my college was totally different than you guys experienced. You know, I was completely in awe with the talent that we had in Kraft Foods. When you look around the room and you saw those interns in the room, and it was just a powerful, beautiful, you know, thing to see, and particularly that it was students and interns of color, right? Was even more impressive and powerful. And so, you know, that's the passion that's driving me now to sort of do this where I'm working right now, because we have similar opportunities here in this area. And I think all of the things that you guys talked about, I think are very important. I love there's a component of the inroads piece that I was thinking that needed to be able to teach people around financial literacy, like during the summers. So all of a sudden you start, you're in college, you start making money, you get a salary, all that kind of stuff, you get stipend. So how do you manage it? But Kevin, the whole idea of doing something after you're now in your career and continuing that discussion to talk about wealth is definitely also something that's really, really powerful. And I think that, you know, can, again, have a ripple effect on, you know, changing, you know, people's perspective. So, so a lot of different aspects here that we'll continue to work on. If you guys don't mind, I will continue to keep you in the loop and reach out to you. We're a lot to build. There, I'm building the inroad side, and I'm building, the craft side. If you saw from the document that was attached to the invite, there's a perspective where, like Kraft, you walk in there, and even Nabisco, to that standpoint, those organizations, I started in Nabisco, so I understand the environment that you guys experience on the Nabisco side. So we have to build that corporate. So one piece of it is to do an assessment on companies to make sure they're ready for interns, right? I don't want someone to waste a summer, doing something that they don't have anything that they could put on their resume other than that company's name, right? The point of being able to go into another organization, if you don't get hired by the ones you did summer, is to talk about your experience and talk about that in depth and talk about that from a confident standpoint, that what you're talking about, and here's your experience, and here's how you dealt with challenges and opportunities. That comes from having a stout and an appropriate internship opportunity, right? And so parts of the program that you probably didn't see on the inroad side was them making sure they had the right companies, right? And some sort of agreement with those companies to, have a mentor, have people in there that were going to be keeping an eye on the interns to make sure someone was guiding them through that organizational side of things, in addition to the stuff that Inroads was trying to teach you around etiquette and business and how to shake hands and do all those kinds of things. And then I think you guys all know Kwame wrote a book, Striving While Black. I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, let me know and I can drop a copy in the mail to you. But, that book is really from his experience of, talking to you about, how to navigate your boss, how to get feedback, how to operate within that corporate structure, which is for me one of the most important things, because let's just get down to it. When you're the only person of color in the room, that's first really intimidating, or woman or Latina, it's really intimidating, and then you have to deal with all the sort of microaggression stuff. And that's part of the issue. A thing that will be in this program is to talk about that. How do you deal with it when someone says, "Can I touch your hair?" Or comments on the color of the shirt that you're wearing, or similar type of things that, as you guys probably know from transitioning in your career, even in a Fortune 50 kind of company, that stuff still happens, right? Even when you've got like really stellar leaders in the top, all up and down those organizations, you have a variety of people with all sorts of different biases and backgrounds and those kinds of things. And that's what makes the boat run. But it also makes what makes the boat, like being an inhabitant on it, kind of crazy at times. And so I think, understanding those things and putting something together that adds those kinds of touch points to the program is what I'm trying to be intentional about as well. So a lot of stuff to get done. The plan is to have the first cohort of interns in the summer of 2021. So right now, we are in the process of doing some branding work to get the organization to the point where we could start to have a conversation with some of the corporations in the local region about housing interns, what's the contract that we want to have with them. And then also on the other side is to build the curriculum. What's the program look like for the interns during the summer? And then, as you guys touched on a little bit about the application process, I am sort of kind of open to a number of different things. We're learning a lot of stuff about, does GPA really matter? On some level it does. On another level, we might be missing out with individuals who have a lower GPA but still have that hunger. Is hunger more important than your grade point, right? Is the desire to, be, something bigger and better in your life? How do you measure that? And how do we deal with that in an application process so that we can do the proper screening, if you will, right? And so there's a whole host of things here. I realize this is like Mount Everest, but I think with having, my network, like happened in the mail and call me, led me to you guys. And then, from you guys, it will spread out. And so I am very, very grateful for your time today, and would definitely appreciate it if you continue to engage with this and help me build it. And once we get going and we're not in the COVID world anymore, we will need people to come and talk to the students. And so hopefully New Orleans will get back to being a great place to come and visit. And so, you can all come down and, be a part of this. So it'll be a beautiful thing. So, and you all have my email. So if you have any ideas or constructs or, thoughts on, curriculum, that type of stuff, just throw it in an email and send it to me. I'm wide open as far as it's a whiteboard. There's some concepts that I know we have to put in place, but other than that, it's kind of a whiteboard. So, Mel, thank you.
You're very welcome, Perry. Thank you guys again very much. So just, I'm going to try and reach out to as many people as I can, and I'm going to ask you guys to forward it. Let's do this as an Inroads reunion, a Kraft alumni Inroads reunion. We'll get a Zoom meeting out there, and it will be 100% personal, and we'll just hear what everybody's up to. I think that'll be really great. So this has been amazing. Thank you guys again very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Perry, whatever you need from me, and I'm sure these guys are very open. We'd love to help you with your project as much as we can, this new endeavor. Absolutely, I think it's so important. So it was great to see everybody. And I thank you for your time. And I will be in touch definitely from a more personal perspective, because I can't wait to hear what everybody's up to.
Great.
Awesome.
This is great. All right, bye guys.
Bye. See you all later. Take care.
Hey, Perry,
Yes,
you still have the 973 number?
absolutely. Yes.
I got your number. I'm going to give you a shout.
Okay, sounds good.
Take care.